My name is Tyler Reed and I live in Asheville, North Carolina. I was not brave. My friend Ryan called and said, "Big run, you in?" I said, Yeah. We met with 2 others and a guide named Mark. He was quiet. He pointed out a place called Devil's Tooth. We laughed and put in. The water felt odd. It smelled like wet wood. Birds were noisy, then quiet. We passed a ripped tent and a boot on a rock. I joked about a river thief. Mark stared at the boot and said nothing. Small things stacked. Our radio cut out. My phone had no bars. We found a rope tied to a tree, frayed and wet. A chair was knocked over on the bank. I saw a footprint that went into the trees. We laughed to hide the feeling. We hit rough water. The raft slammed. Ryan went under and popped up coughing. I laughed then. At a bend, a thin shape stood in the trees. A tall man with hands in pockets. He watched. Mark slowed us but said nothing. The look stayed with me. We stopped to eat. Jess dropped a sandwich when a fish slapped the water. Mark walked off and came back with a small white shoe. He set it in the raft and said, "This place takes stuff." He tried to smile, but his eyes stayed flat. Later, the river got mean, rocks and logs. A piece of our raft tore. Upstream, a long cry echoed. It was not a normal sound. The raft spun, and a dark flash moved in the foam. Maybe a log, maybe a person, I don't know. We saw a strap cut on a small raft and a cooler floating. Mark said we should end early. I said no. I wanted the beers at the truck, stubborn and dumb. I am ashamed. In a narrow chute, something snagged the back of the raft. It pulled hard. Jess screamed. Ryan reached back with a knife and tried to cut it. The line went loose. A length of oily, scabby stuff floated away. We watched it go. No one spoke. At the takeout, truck lights made the wet river shine. A woman with a flashlight and 2 guides waited. The sheriff came later. Someone reported a missing boy, 12. I sat on the tailgate and thought of the shoe and the rope and of laughing when Ryan slipped. They asked questions. I told parts of the day. I left out small things. Guilt is sticky. That night, I couldn't sleep. The river replayed like bad film. Weeks later, Mark left the company. People said, family stuff. The boot was gone from the rock the next time I drove by. Sometimes it is there, sometimes it isn't. Ryan and I still text dumb jokes and stop. I keep thinking of small dumb things, like I forgot to lock the truck that night. I woke the next day and asked myself why I was even thinking about that. My mind held tiny things. I remember the river tasting like mud when it slapped my lips. I remember my shirt sticking to me. I remember Ryan bragging about a jump he wanted to try. I remember Jess saying she'd post a picture. After the sheriff left, we went to a diner. We ordered greasy burgers. We tried to be normal. We talked about work. Then a long silence grew. Ryan asked, "Did you see the man?" I mumbled, "Maybe." He dropped his fork and cursed. We laughed too loud and it sounded wrong. At night I jump at small noises. My cat runs and knocks over a lamp and I swear. I check my phone for no reason. There was an unknown call to the river company that day. Nobody could explain it. It felt like another scrap of something. I drive by Devil's Tooth and look at the bank. Sometimes I see a white shoe in my head. Sometimes I hear a thin cry. I don't know if the river took someone or if a person did. I don't know who tied the rope. What I know is small. The river keeps things, shoes, ropes, maybe lives. It tucks them in eddies like secrets. I keep saying the small parts out loud because maybe they'll stop living in my head, but they don't. They sit like wet mud in my mouth. I tell this because I can't forget. Maybe if someone hears it, they will not go alone. Maybe they'll shout if they see a boot on a rock. I don't know. All I know is that day I tried to be brave turned into a day that keeps me awake. When I close my eyes, I see that small white shoe in the raft, like we had taken something by mistake. I still wake thinking of that shoe. I check the back seat of my truck sometimes like an idiot. Last week I found a bit of frayed rope under my seat. I threw it in the trash, but I kept the ash in a jar. I know, it makes no sense.